Welcome back, everybody. I hope you're all fine and doing well. In this episode, I would like to finish the Neubaufahrzeug build I started last week. Please be aware I'm at my parents' house. I'm traveling with very light package, so I concentrate on techniques that don't require too many products and are quite fast to apply. Next project, that's an all-in again. So let's get into it. You're watching Tank Brusher. I'm doing German AFVs here. All, sometimes weekly, I have to say. No, thanks for subscribing, guys. Now, let's focus on what we've done last week. I used some oil paints to edge highlight the surface to get a little bit a brighter color compared to the RAL 7021 base color, and it's important to seal it in for the following process or leave it at least a week to dry. This engine grime has by accident a very similar color when compared to the RAL 7021, and I would like to take advantage of this, getting a very simple streaking effect going. And I'm not talking about dedicated streaks where paint chips would rust or where dirt accumulates and runs down. No, I mean something like more in the center of the panels of this vehicle, just to break up the surface with a few lines that are pleasing to look at and give a little bit more interest. And it's quite fast to do this technique since there's only, you just use the airbrush and spray on the engine grime on the center of every panel. Leave it a few minutes to dry only. And I say this again since you guys are zapping through the video. Please seal the oil paint in or leave it enough time to dry. Otherwise, the edge highlighting will be gone. Okay, that's enamel odorless thinner with a large brush, and I start streaking the complete surface. Of course, I was a little bit too lazy with the varnish, and this is why this effect blends in the complete edge highlighting, tones it down a little bit. That is okay. I'm totally fine with it. Not messing it up. Okay. No, just getting the streak effect going everywhere, streaking as much as it needs to get the surface back to gray. Just breaking up the airbrushed layer. And I unload and clean the brush between panels. You can't see this on the video. It's just dipping it in thinner, wiping it clean on a towel, and then moving on. In summary, this is not a very harsh effect, it's quite subtle, and I have to say I like it. This was experimental, but I will keep this going for the upcoming projects, see where I can use it instead of a distraction layer or color modulation. But for now, let's make more progress looking at the tracks and the exhaust. I primed the tracks and exhaust in a dark brown, a dust brown in this case, and dusted over it with buff. This creates a very bright sprinkled surface a wash can do really good work on. And this idea is something I follow here, using the track wash. It's a very rusty brown, just getting some of the wash effect. Getting an alternation between the dark surface and the bright dusted surface for a less or non-unified surface. And I would not recommend using the airbrush here. I tried this out experimental. Use the brush, get a lot of wash on, it gives the better result in the end. Assembling the tracks followed the experience I had assembling them. In the first episode I talked about it. That's just not working for me. I prefer workable tracks, and single link tracks somehow and always crooked, or they seem to shrink during the drying process or post-drying process when the glue finally hardens out. To get a little bit more contrast going on these tracks, I use dark wash just to make the surface a little bit darker, get into the recesses, get it a little bit more accumulated. Just forcing contrast to force dimension. When we have a look at the Griffleiste, that's the gripping profile, that's the part where the tank sits on the street or makes contact to the street, we have always wear and tear, and there are different techniques to get a little bit a metal shine on it. I try here, for example, using a very, very soft graphite pen, transferring some of the graphite to the tracks, and I have to say this has its place, but not to cover the complete surface at once. This technique is best used to give it a little bit more shine when we have an already metallic paint underneath it. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the correct term is iridescent for getting this metallic effect into a paint in the first place. Okay, depending on how soft your graphite pen is, you can use it directly as well, but I think I have less control. Too large of a pen for too small details. Yeah, I emergency order arrived finally 1 week too late and gave me back my preferred black metal I used to prime such surfaces to weather on. So the obvious thing to do, the fastest way to do is the best way to do it, just painting them using the brush and acrylic paint, using the graphite pen only for the edges to get a little bit additional shine into it. Here I'm going over the complete outside of the tracks or the running surface of the tracks where it makes contact with the vehicle, over with a dark wash, getting some additional contrast in, and they look good for a simple rusted track without any mud or dust effect. That's not too bad. I come back to the track pins once more. I said it last episode, I can't deal with them here. They are not an interference fit, they are a slide fit, they fall out. Keep an eye on my community tab of my YouTube channel. I will provide a solution for this 3D printed later on. On the exhaust, I used the hairspray technique with the brown as a base color, the vehicle color as a second layer with the hairspray between it to get an initial burning, rusting effect going. I was not too happy with what I achieved, so hairspray is not working for me, not coming easy for me. So I go over this with a wash, giving it a little bit more dimension or toning down the points where I accidentally chipped down to the primer again, making it look okay. That doesn't look too well in real life. It looks really good flooded with light, but the contrast is much too subtle to be visible when it's on the shelf. And this is why I stipple on some oil paints to enhance the rust effect. The same way I do this always, I apply some oil and then come back with a brush dipped a little bit in enamel odorless thinner, just stippling the paint on, getting it to a distribution where it looks a little bit natural. It served me quite well, this technique, to get these just good looking rusted exhausts, but there's always something we can refine more. These vehicles had a high exhaust temperature, so there was quite a lot of rusting going on. Moving on into the pin wash, one of the most important weathering steps or techniques within the weathering process. It just looks good, it gives so much dimension, brings all the details out. I use the dark wash. I personally don't like the washes for Panzer Gray. I don't think blue has anything to do with a Panzer Gray tank, so I'm always after a little bit a darker color. Thematically fitting is finishing the tools right now, using a brown wash, just getting a coverage of this enamel product onto the previously very bright old wood, it's the color of the name, painted wood part of the tools, and leaving these enamel paints dry for a few minutes only. And then I come back with a clean brush with enamel odorless thinner and start streaking on this. And it's a multi-layer effect, so happens quite often that I cover the surface again with a wash and come back again, streaking it, just getting it into a shape or form of painted wood. Okay, the lights, I have to use some chrome on them. I don't have a better solution at hand, just using some metallic paint to give them as much reflection as I can right now with limited resources. All in all, doesn't look too bad. It was very simple weathering for now, and the only thing I would like to add is some basic mud effects. And I don't even mean splashed on mud or dried mud, just what's falling off the tracks even when you drive on a road or a compacted street, together with the already very subtle darkish brownish engine grime streaking. This creates the contrast I need to be happy with my weathering. That's that's an enamel product, Heavy Mud by Ammo by Mick. And it has a good texture. It's a little bit too bright to be used in this way I show it here, but we will fix this later on. Now let's first deal with the distribution. I just want it on every horizontal surface, giving it a little bit a ununified distribution. That's what I'm doing here with my brush. That's only enamel odorless thinner in the brush. It gets cleaned out regularly, and I'm only pushing the pigments around, just getting the distribution somewhat natural, blending the edges, making sure there are no brush strokes visible, giving only the impression the dirt has fallen down and was moved off by vibration of the vehicle or carried away by water. This is why I add some simple dirt streaks on these recesses where the material would have been carried away by the engineering or the shape of the vehicle. That's nothing too complicated. You have all seen this many times, and still it has a lot of effect. It looks really nice when done well. And of course I come back to this here. This is a very, very bright color. It might look good on the video, but it's a little bit too harsh. Before we fix it, this is something, again, a second layer of a pin wash, the same topic, having a little bit a too harsh contrast going on, together with the first layer being a dark wash, the second layer being now a dust wash made from the same heavy mud product to keep the colors unified. This is why I have to come back and dial it down, or in case of the pin wash I cleaned it off in the most areas. As a final effect is this toning down of the very bright mud. It's done with this earth effect. That's an enamel paint without texture, unfortunately. Would love to have this color tone, this hue as a textured effect, but I can only paint the existing mud as soon as it has dried, is ready to take on some new enamel paint, and just focusing on the most recessed sides, getting a little bit a darker mud effect going, giving it a little bit more volume. This is already where I would like to finish the project, the weathering. This vehicle is not going all the way I could do and can do and will do in the future, but it's a good standard. There were some nice and easy techniques used, and I'm fine with this. The track pins will be fixed off camera. You most likely won't see them again. I'm sorry, but the STL files I will supply through my community tab on my YouTube channel. I hope you enjoyed the video and the build anyway. See you guys next week when I start with the initial King Tiger, the prototype, the V1, opening up this series of vehicles as well. Until then, happy modeling and take care.